Syrians not interested in the refugee rush. I'm Lilley with TheRebel.Media. Well, just as Canadians aren't actually in a mad rush to accept a high number of refugees in a short period of time, it turns out that those in the Syrian refugee camps aren't in a mad rush to come to Canada. That from a technical briefing held in Ottawa by government officials on Wednesday morning. What am I talking about? Everyone wants to come to Canada, right? Wrong. Canadian officials are working with the United Nations to try and find registered refugees to meet the government target of 25,000 government-sponsored refugees. The UN sent text messages to 41,000 people that had registered, asking them if they were interested in coming to Canada. Now, you know, some of those numbers were for families, so really, we're talking about many more people than that. Likely this represents about 120,000 people, at least 120,000 refugees through those 41,000 phone numbers. But it turns out a bunch of those texts didn't go through. The numbers didn't work. So the UN followed up with phone calls to the 28,500 phone numbers that worked. Again, the request was, do you want to go to Canada? Of those 28,500 phone numbers of people registered in refugee camps, a little over 3,000 showed up for interviews. And of that, just 1,800 said, yeah, I might be interested in going to Canada. So it turns out a lot of people, they want to go home. They want to return home when the war is over. Canada's received 271 refugees since November 4th when the new government took power. But as officials stated, those were people already in the process before the election took place. There are also 9,090 people whose applications were already in process prior to the new government taking power, meaning the mean old Harper government, we were told, didn't care about helping refugees. This is shocking on so many fronts. We know that the Conservatives focused their efforts on private sponsorships. Those were mainly people with family in Canada, people with connections to the country. It's been successful, whether we're talking about Syria or Iraq or other countries around the world that we bring refugees from. Many of the others simply don't want to come here. It's not that they hate Canada per se, it's that they want to go home. As one of the officials put it, I think it's just a reality that as much as we are eager to welcome the 25,000 people and want them to come to Canada, some of them want to stay close to home. Some of them still want to be able to return to Syria and are hopeful there will be a resolution to the conflict there. The official went on to say that they were in a refugee camp in Turkey earlier this year. They'd spoken to people that had lived in the camp for 3 years that said they don't want to leave. They wanted to stay close so that when the war's over, they could go home. Funny, that was the point that Stephen Harper made during the election campaign when he said that should be one of the priorities. He quoted people that he had spoken to. He said Canada could do more by helping those on the ground that didn't want to leave. For that, he was described as uncaring. This refugee rush has been a white liberal guilt exercise from the beginning. As I've said, it's been driven by partisan politics and a heartbreaking picture of a dead toddler that showed up along with a false story that he and his family were rejected from Canada in the middle of an election. The Liberals promptly promised 25,000 refugees. That number has now grown, according to Immigration Minister John McCallum, to close to 50,000 by the end of 2016. But so far, only 1,800 out of 41,000 contacted. Officials insisted those numbers were for the middle to the end of November and the interest is growing. But when asked for numbers, they couldn't give any. Maybe the hesitancy of Canadians in taking part in the refugee rush is matched by the hesitancy of Syrians to say they don't want to be a part of it.